I'll be the first to predict that it's the end of Justin Trudeau's reign in Canada. Um, he is not a polarizing figure, but he is a figure that draws a lot of comments. When I was traveling and I told people I was from Canada, the first thing they would always say is, "What do you think about Justin Trudeau?" They didn't know much about him, but their first impression was that they liked him because of his hair. I was shocked every time I heard it. I thought, how shallow can people be? But let's look at the history. It started with John Kennedy. People were really impressed when they compared him to Nixon. He looked, and it was funny, when they had a debate, Kennedy had makeup put on and whatnot, and Nixon waved it off thinking he wanted to look genuine, but because he didn't have any makeup on, he looked horrible on TV, and that was the end of him. So it is funny how little things like that can magnify. And then it was Clinton. He charmed people. He was a real charmer, charismatic figure. Barack Obama, people seemed to like. He had a clean look. I thought Canadians were above that, but apparently not in this day of Instagram. When I look at it, I never fell for Trudeau, I must be honest with you. I remember when he had an interview with Peter Mansbridge, and even Mansbridge was easy on him. He didn't ask him too many hard questions, but he had a real hard time answering Peter's questions. I met Peter a couple of times, and he couldn't. If you go back, you can see on YouTube the interview. I should put a link into it. He took so long with each question, almost as though he was saying the answer to himself and then evaluating how it would sound. So I found right away he wasn't genuine. He wasn't comfortable with himself. But what happened is the Liberals thought, we got a guy with his name, right, because his father was prime minister, and we can massage him, we can message him to the point that we can fool enough people, not Manchurian Candidate style, but we can massage enough people to be comfortable with him. And then the rest was all his right-hand man, Gerald Butts. He helped him with everything that he said and did. But because of the SNC-Lavalin scandal, he lost his right-hand man. He had to let him go. And ever since then, he's been flailing. I remember Paul Wells noticed that. He said once he lost him, he hasn't been able to say one thing right. And I think now the tide has turned and people are taking it out on him. Today they were protesting when he got off the bus, and his handlers said, there was a problem with safety. No, the only thing not safe is his own speech. So I think he's going to be taken down. And it's funny, I have a friend who loves him, and he said, O'Toole, we can't have that old guy in. And I pointed out to him that O'Toole is actually younger than Justin. He was shocked by that. He had nothing to say to that. So I think Justin is going to lose. The poll numbers are going against him. All the traditional Liberal attacks are being blunted. The Conservatives were smart to get out ahead of these and blunt it as best they could, and they're doing better than anyone could have imagined. I'm not a conservative guy, but I just see from a distance what's happening. And the added bonus they have is Jagmeet is kind of working in tandem with O'Toole instead of against him. So he's going to siphon off votes from Justin, and I think Justin will be left out in the cold this election. So it serves him right for calling a snap election, thinking that he would get a majority by getting people on his side with the coronavirus, but it's gone against him. People are holding him accountable, and I think that's good. He didn't pay a price for his blackface stunt. He didn't pay a price for the military scandals. He didn't pay a price for anything. He was almost like John Gotti, when nothing could touch him, but then he finally came down. So he's Teflon guy no more. He's going to be taken down. And just a word, I met his dad twice. I worked in Parliament, and I saw his dad once there. And then I saw him again in Whistler as he was getting off the lift to go skiing. Apparently his son was living in Whistler. I never saw him, but I knew people who, younger people who hung out with him. He had a bit of a substance abuse problem, and he was living his life out in Whistler. At least Justin was much more responsible, and he was getting his life together. So that's good for him, but I think his time... and also, an aside, I had an American that I spoke to. I worked with him, and we would always talk politics. And he would always say how bad Justin was. He just thought he was awful. I only thought he was just an empty suit. He was a man who didn't really have many ideals, and he wasn't really comfortable with himself. But this man followed politics quite extensively, and he thought he was just horrible. And I listened to At Issue with Andrew Coyne. Both he and his counterpart thought that they didn't have a good explanation as to why they called the election now. And I think that really hurt him. And now as the polling is coming out day after day, it's getting worse and worse. And I think it's going to cost him, and I think it should. So that's my comment about Justin Trudeau, and his reign will be coming to an end. Thank you.